Hi, welcome to the Get Ready with God podcast. My name is Julie Taylor, and I am your host. And I am not God, obviously. I am not an expert. I'm not even a scriptorian. I'm literally just a girl sitting in front of a microphone, hoping God is real. The Get Ready with God podcast is the daily devotional podcast to help you see divinity in every day. And if you are watching on YouTube today, you'll notice that I have a tiny little friend joining me today. My sweet 3-year-old Sophie is having kind of a hard time, and I need to record this episode. So she is snuggling with me and will be our grounding energy and beautiful light spirit while we record this episode. It's actually really funny, meaningful that she should be laying on me during this episode, because the topic that I want to talk about today is finding relief through God in impossible times. And while I don't think it's Sophie's life purpose or her job in any way to bring light to our family after a hard time, she definitely has done that. And just yesterday, we were at a water park, which is hands down the most stressful, overstimulating place on earth, I think. But I was playing with her in the pool, and I just thought, I wish that everybody got a sunshine toddler to get them through their grief, because she has been really, really a force for light and good and help and healing in ours. But what I want to talk about today is, a few weeks ago, it was Mother's Day, and my good friend Laurel Day was kind enough to come down and speak to my church women's group. It was so kind of her, and I really love her and love learning from her. And she has a unique perspective on motherhood through her own life experience, and it's very different than mine. But she was talking about these kind of hopeless times where it's hard to find relief, and it's hard to find hope, and it's hard to carry on. And something she said, I don't remember her exact words, but as I understood it, was sometimes it's not in the moment of hopelessness, it's not in the rock bottom, darkest time that God arrives, that relief arrives. Sometimes it's after we've gotten ourselves back up. And I probably butchered that whole thing, but what I related it to is, I often lay on my closet floor when I'm at my lowest and I don't know if I can go another step. I go into my closet and I shut the door and I lay on the closet floor. And in those moments, desperate prayers are said, right? Of just save me, SOS, I can't do this. And there's been a lot of times in my life, well, not a lot, but there's been a handful of times. I don't want to say a lot because I don't want to trivialize it. Because it's that low. There's often times when things are hard and we find ourselves feeling down or low, but there's a handful of times in life that maybe you can relate to feeling a loss of hope, a devoid of light, feeling like it's impossible to take another step or to carry on. And a lot of prayers of desperation are often said then. And I don't think that God is absent from those times. I don't think that that feeling of desperation is God's absence. I do think that it can be hard to recognize his partnership and his presence in those times. But I do think that he's there. And often, as I've looked back, I can see how. I can look back and see where he was, even in those hopeless, darkest times. I can see evidence of him there. But in real time, when you're living it and when you're experiencing it, it feels like he's not there. And it feels like there's no help, no hope, and no relief. And what she said spoke to me so deeply of, it's not often when the desperate prayer is said that we are saved, or that we receive a thought or a circumstance change or something that brings us relief. It's often after we've gotten back up and continued on. And I resonated with that so much, because a lot of times when I've thought about it, it's not the story of, and then I said my desperate prayer, and then these words came to my head. Sometimes it's immediate like that. But so often it's, I hit my lowest point. I kept going anyways by some miracle. And then I found relief through X, Y, or Z. And then these words came to my mind. And then this thing happened that helped me understand. It is so rarely in the darkness that the relief comes. But like I said, when I look back in hindsight, I can always see God there. Someone messaged me this week and was asking about how to find God in darkness because they felt forsaken. And I had said something like, God never leaves, right? And they were like, well, he's left me now. I've been forsaken. And I'm not going to challenge that. I know that feeling. But I do think that when we make it through, and I do think it's a miracle to make it through, and I think it's because of divine help that we can't see that we make it through. And so I guess I would invite you to look back on those times. Can you now look back and see God's presence through that time? Can you now look back and see maybe where he was, where you couldn't see him, where you couldn't find him? Was he actually there? And then think about how you were able to get up off the closet floor, and then where relief came once you were up off the floor. Where did the relief come? What was that timeline like? What was that experience like? I want you to reflect on it personally so that you can acknowledge and identify and maybe articulate what that looked like. There's a few times, like I said, that I have felt this, and the most recent one obviously being when we lost Simon. And I remember in those weeks feeling like, wow, he's really not going to come. God's really not going to help me. And I really didn't think that he was there. And even when I spoke at Simon's funeral a week after his passing, I kind of spoke to not feeling divine comfort or divine peace or divine help. And now when I look back, it's so clear to me that he was there in every moment and every step of the way. It just hurt that much. That even with divine presence and divine help, it still hurt that much. And I couldn't be saved from that, but I could be helped through. And now I could carry on and on for hours of what that looked like, what that felt like, how I've seen it, how I've understood it, what I see now that I couldn't see then, all of the ways that I have found relief and adjacent hope and adjacent light, even when the one thing couldn't be restored right now, couldn't be fixed. But learn what that's looked like for you and articulate what it's looked like for you so that the next time you find yourself on the closet floor, because unfortunately, I think that we will find ourselves back there again, and maybe you're there right now, but articulate what it looked like and felt like to be supported, or what relief looked like and felt like, and when the timeline was, when that relief came. Because when we're in the dark, when we're on the closet floor, it's really easy to convince ourselves that we'll never be okay again, that the light will never come, that relief will never come because it's impossible. And we can't see it, and we can't even dream it. So how can we hope it? But when you can look back and gather evidence from your own life and your own experience of the times when maybe you have been helped, supported, carried, and found relief, not on the timeline that you wanted, but it did come. You can use that evidence to help yourself get up off the floor and take another step and trust that if you do that, relief will come. God will not fail you. And I say that as someone who feels like he did. But when I look back now, that's not how I see it, but that is what it felt like. And I think that's why most often when people ask me for advice, which is laughable, but the thing that it all boils down to is keep trying. We have to keep trying. That's it. Trying will look different. That will mean different things. But we have to keep trying because it is in the trying that relief is found. It is in the trying that we see God show up. My main motto that I live by is deep breath, let's go. Because so much of my life right now is take a deep breath and just try. And I don't know how it's going to go, and I don't know if I'm capable, and I don't know how to do it. And a lot of times I don't even know why I'm doing it. But I know we have to keep trying. The trying matters, the effort matters, and it is in that trying that we find relief. God never leaves. He's always been there. We can't see it because sometimes it hurts that bad that even with him there, it feels impossible. Deep breath. Let's go. Love you so much.